back to the Football Tribe UG channel. Robert Kesakos is your usual suspect. Welcome back to another live broadcast on your favorite football updates channel. It's a pleasure to be back with you on this beautiful Thursday morning, the 28th of May 2026. We do return for yet another episode for live editions for conversations regarding football. Today, I hope, if all goes well, we will be publishing after this broadcast a full preview for the PSG versus Arsenal game for the UEFA Champions League final. So please look forward for that one as we go to today. So, but also, on a similar note, I wish to send my sincere vote of thanks to all of you that have spared the time to go and watch Premier League awards for the 2025-2026 season. Continue to do the same. Let me know what you change, what you'd have for any other candidates that you would nominate for the respective categories. If you have divergent views and opinions in regards to what our selections were for the respective accolades for the Premier League awards. Then also, for those of you that were part of the conversation last night, thank you so much for making it worthwhile. We're here for about 2 hours. United Road 10, Aromal, Chipes, Sino Bueno, Reluctant Gamer, and every single one of you, because our broadcast got broken at some point. Internet dropped off. That is usually out of my control. I simply have to be patient and wait it out in as far as things go when something like that happens. And oftentimes when it happens, a lot of you drop. Which is sort of the inevitability of it. But for those of you that managed to return and will continue the conversation, thank you so much for your show of patience, for your show of kindness. Once again, we are back to have another conversation. I hope this one will be a good one as well. This morning, of course, there's plenty of news making the rounds, but there's only one big headline as far as football goes. Usually, when I say there's one big headline, it's not to say that there's not other news that is worthy of making the headlines, but I simply stand to say that some stories are bigger than others. And there's no bigger story this morning than Crystal Palace clinching their first ever European title in their first ever European campaign, as they beat Rayo Vallecano by 1-0 to win the UEFA Conference League. That's as good as it gets. That's the best of it. That's the gist of it. So yesterday at the Red Bull Arena in Leipzig, Germany, was the day. It all started really when Crystal Palace were writing history. What a 12-month spell have Crystal Palace had, because it's been success after success. It's been good story after good story. A lot of times, you do not have teams the caliber of Crystal Palace get as many beautiful stories as this one comes. But the last 12 months have been quite, tremendous for the Eagles there in the Premier League. Right from winning the FA Cup last season to their triumph this season, we're breaking it down. And then, obviously, the story within the story is the departure of Oliver Glasner. I think that one is a denting story in its own right, but also sometimes you're more happy that something happened than opposed to you being sad that it's come to an end. I think if there's any tale, that is the tale that Crystal Palace will be telling themselves. They will be happy it happened with Oliver Glasner, as opposed to being sad that it has ended with him, because the manner in which it has ended is really, really quite remarkable. So now, like I said, yesterday I was unable to watch the first half of that game. A reason being, I was giving a lecture for a digital marketing lecture to a group of, I don't want to call them students, but to a group of people, majority of whom I was led to believe do their work from outside countries or our colleagues in the diaspora. So that took me about 1.5 hours of delivering that lecture. So I ended up missing the first half, not because I intended on it. But nonetheless, I was there to catch the second half for everything that it was, for the beauty of the game that it delivered. And oh my, did it not deliver? I mean, it was such a good game, particularly the first half, from the look of things, did not offer much. It was a game of very, very few chances in terms of chances created or attempts on target. Crystal Palace had 3 compared to only 1 from Rayo Vallecano. 5 shots off target for Vallecano and 5 off target for Crystal Palace. Blocked shots for Crystal Palace were 3 compared to none for Rayo Vallecano, who dominated possession to the tune of 58% compared to 42% of Crystal Palace. And yeah, that second half goal by Jean-Philippe Mateta, when he with Adam Wharton providing the assist, was enough to decide the tie. An easy tap in from close range, that was the goal. And then, of course, there were so many key moments, including Yeremy Pino, who had a free kick, attempting to make it 2-0, but he hit the inside of the crossbar. Ball went out and hit the upright on the other side before coming back into play. So, and then Ismail Sarr had a moment where, his attempt hit the side net. Crystal Palace had a couple of other flash brilliant moments, particularly in the second half. Rayo Vallecano lacked that biting edge, that cutting edge whenever they went forward, so they did not create much to really, really give themselves a chance. But Adam Wharton was the man of the match by Daichi Kamada in that midfield, ran his socks off. Dark Psych official, High Dark Psych official, hello to you too. Good to have you on the podcast. So Jade Camvot, Chris Reid, Maxes Lekwa in that at the center of that back three was quite the rock. Tariq Mitchell, I thought, had a good game. You say I'm on YouTube. Okay, that's brilliant. Kindly subscribe to the channel if you don't mind, but also like the broadcast as well. Daniel Munoz had a brilliant game. Ismail Sarr may have not scored, but nonetheless was really, really good. On the other side, you thought Lopez, players like what's his name, Garcia, had some sort of fairly good game, but it just wasn't their night. It's the kind of game where the difference in quality wasn't miles apart. There wasn't a gulf of quality in between the two sides. It's a game that got decided by one moment. You say you subbed, thank you so much. It's that kind of game. It got decided by that moment. And that's the thing I've been saying about finals. Sometimes, no matter how good both teams are, no matter how a lot of quality could be at display from one team to the other, sometimes you could have the simplest of moments determine the final, determine who wins it. And then for the rest of the game, it's sort of, it gives you that streak of a team coming close, but yet somehow failing to find that final through ball, that clinical pass, that line-breaking pass, that breakthrough, that clear attempt on target. You end up with half chances and things like that. So it can happen that way. It can happen that way, really, in all sense, for all intents and purposes. That can define the final. Dom says hi, says my parents got divorced, then my ex cheated on me. Because of it, I feel like it's all my fault. I need some advice. Well, you do not highlight how that is any of your fault, but in football we say, what's done is done. A result that has been decided on the pitch cannot be decided off of the pitch. So if your parents have divorced, as unfortunate as that is, you need to find a way to carry yourself on. If your partner has cheated on you, find a way to pick yourself up and move on. It may be painful, take the lessons out of it and go forward. Now, in as far as lessons go, I do not think it comes any better than Crystal Palace writing that history. Mitchell Wines quotes says, I'm available for such advice. Good enough. Our friend Mitchell Wine quotes is down there in the comment section, so you can engage him further. He's more proven in that area of offering advice than I am. He's been dubbed the quote-unquote, for lack of a better word, if not the perfect word, love doctor. So good morning, Mitchell Wine quotes. I hope you're doing well. So To retreat back, yesterday Crystal Palace wrote their own history. Like I said, it's been a brilliant 12 months for them under Oliver Glasner. For quite some time, the course of this season, we've known that he will be leaving the club at the end of the season, but we have to take our footsteps, trace them back to last season when he guided Crystal Palace to the triumph of the FA Cup when they beat Manchester City in the finals. And the road to it was not an easy one because at the semi-finals, they had to overcome a team like Aston Villa, who they beat by 3-0. And then that Ebelechi easy goal decided the tie when he scored to make it 1-0 at the time. Like I said, sometimes finals are of very few moments. You bring yourself to the FA Cup final and it was only one beautiful moment. Anton Semenyo's backflip of a goal decided the tie between Chelsea and Manchester City. When you transpose back to the Carabao Cup, played in March 22 between Arsenal and Manchester City. Whereas it was fairly a good game to watch, it was those two moments with Nico O'Reilly coming out on top that decided the tie. So finals can sometimes be very typical of that one small moment, one big moment, one decisive moment, one bit of not a standout moment, but because it comes up with a goal, it makes it the standout moment that then decides the tie. Okay. Mitchell says, I'm fine, Papa. You have a case to answer. How comes I'm waking up seeing a Palace being victors? Never knew it was for yesterday. Unfortunately, I do not know what route you support, what team you root for. Perhaps you could have been still basking in the glory of Arsenal's recent triumph that you forgot of anything else that there is to come and hopefully waiting for the UEFA Champions League final. By any extension, if it is any consolation, I bring myself to the reminder that I missed about 60 minutes of the Aston Villa game against Freiburg because remember that game came in the aftermath of Arsenal clinching the Premier League title on a Tuesday night when Manchester City drew with AFC Bournemouth. So the subsequent day, the majority of the talk was about Arsenal's triumph that we forgot that Aston Villa were playing. And until when it was time for me to do my night broadcast at 11 p.m., that then it occurred to me, oh, Aston Villa are in action. And by that time, all 3 goals had been scored. Anyways, it was a brilliant game of football. We managed to catch the highlights for what it was. You could also indulge yourself with the highlights from yesterday, but you won't see much of many brilliant moments other than the goal, the free kick from Jeremy Pino that hit the woodwork, and a few, maybe close moments here and there. But yeah, Crystal Palace were triumphant. Like I said, as we take ourselves back, so Eberechi Eze's goal decided the tie. I thought in that game, Dean Henderson should have gotten a red card for handling the ball outside the area when Brad Erling Haaland was having a chase at it, but it never happened, and eventually Man City lost out. Then fast forward, in the preamble of every season of the Premier League, we have the Community Shield. Liverpool, the Premier League champions, then took on Crystal Palace. It was a 2-2 draw in normal time, and Crystal Palace clinched it 3-2 on post-match penalties that ushered us into the season. That meant another piece of silverware. In the club's 120-year history, Crystal Palace had won 2 trophies in a space of 2.5 months. Their first ever coming with the FA Cup. Second, the Community Shield, all under Oliver Glasner, who arrived at the club, I think in February 2024, when Roy Hodgson had decided to step down. Remember, Roy Hodgson regained, reassumed the roles at Crystal Palace following the departure of Patrick Vieira then. So, and then fast forward this season, at the climax of it, they win the UEFA Conference League. They become the 3rd English side to win the UEFA Conference League, first having been West Ham in 2023. You remember that team of Declan Rice, 2022-2023 season, under the charges of David Moyes. And then last season, it was Chelsea who beat 4-1 against Real Betis. That Real Betis side that had Johnny Cardoso, Anthony from, from Manchester United at the time on loan, Isiko Alcaron, etc. Whereas Chelsea on the other side, they had the, of course, Enzo Fernandez, Moises Caicedo, Cole Palmer, the likes of those players. Jordan Sancho was part of that team, and it is what it is. They won that one. And last night, it was Crystal Palace joining the celebration party. Now, if you can write your legacy without necessarily being a legend, but for Oliver Glasner, he's managed to somehow shoot two birds with one stone. Being the first manager to guide Crystal Palace to a major piece of silverware put him at the absolute legendary status at Crystal Palace. Now, following their subsequent win in the Community Shield and now the UEFA Conference League, I think he deserves a statue outside Selhurst Park and a stand named after him because he's done the unthinkable. I do not think many of us would have given Crystal Palace last season a chance at the FA Cup. This season, we gave them the chance because they were against our rival Kano. You thought that even though the budgets Crystal Palace have it the better, but the teams are overall evenly matched in one way or the other. They've had to drag their feet through the competition, given the fact that they even needed to, play the playoffs. Of course, beating up against teams like Fiorentina along the way. I think that was at the quarterfinals. It wasn't easy, but they managed to do it. So it wasn't easy, but they managed to do it. They had to overcome teams like Shakhtar Donetsk from Ukraine. That was at the semifinals. It wasn't easy, but they managed to do it. So really, and then when you go back to, I think the round of 16, they had, was it when they played AEK Lanaka, that team that was previously managed by Andoni Iraola at some point. So really, they've done remarkably well, and Oliver Glasner wins himself his second UEFA, a trophy. The first coming at RB Leipzig. The first coming at Eintracht Frankfurt in 2022 when he won the UEFA Europa League. They beat Rangers by, I think, was it 4-1 post-match penalties? And yeah, he was triumphant. And yesterday he was Jean-Philippe Mateta. We're talking about a player, the goal scorer in the final, to be the player who was just one piece of paper away from joining AC Milan in January. But because he failed his medical due to an issue in his knee, he was welcomed back at the Eagles with open arms. A section of fans may have had to take a bit of time taking it in that he had returned and his move to AC Milan had been unsuccessful despite the fact that they had already signed Jürgen Strand Larsson as his replacement and had agreed a deal in principle to sign Dwight McNeil from Everton, initially on a loan deal with an obligation to buy, but that did not happen. Actually, it was going to be for about £25 million straight away, but then they tried to renegotiate after Jean-Philippe Mateta's deal was botched. So when it's botched, obviously the player was dumbfounded for missing out with the move. He really relished the move, but it has all worked out perfectly well. He's come back, he scored the goals, he's been summoned to the French national team squad. I think it was a blessing in disguise for him that Hugo Ekitike suffered that horrible ankle injury that he now gets the breakthrough. So yeah, that's Oliver Glasner for you. That is written history with this Crystal Palace side, and I don't think the rest is history because they still have a trophy parade to go through in the coming days over there. But yeah, the 51-year-old Austrian manager has done himself the wonders, and I think he is going to be one that is considered for many top jobs, as has been the case with speculation in the work of Chelsea recently. Present day, you're going to hear murmurings from Bayer Leverkusen. Why? Because their preferred candidates, and we'll maybe get to speak about that a little later, in Filipe Luis, yes, has now moved to Monaco, so a lot of things are happening behind closed doors where you guys are not, but I'll do my best to bring them to you at your doorstep. So that's Oliver Glasner for you with his Crystal Palace side. Another piece of silverware, history in the making. 2 English Premier League sides winning 2 UEFA competitions. Now, the real stick has been handed over to a Netherlands side in Arsenal, who play PSG on Saturday at 7 p.m. in the UEFA Champions League final at the Puskás Arena in Budapest, Hungary. So, yeah. Okay. Daniel Brice Sports Highlights says, hey everyone, happy Thursday. Happy Thursday to you too. Daniel, Raymond Kangoba says, hi, Crystal Palace, the champions of Europe Conference League, major piece of silverware, start for Crystal Palace next season. That's from Ray. Thank you so much, Ray. You say, hi, happy for Oliver Glasner, first European League trophy. No, the first came in 2022, like I've indulged you there with Eintracht Frankfurt. So that's his second as a manager. Now, speaking of it being the second for him as a manager, like I said, it's going to be really, really sought after. Now, Crystal Palace, unfortunately, are going to have to be in the market searching for a managerial replacement because he is leaving the club at the end of it all. Once the trophy parade is done and etc., he will be leaving the club. And given what he's managed to achieve with them, they have to get their next appointment really, really spot on, because the last thing they would want is to digress back. And it's because of the victories of teams like Crystal Palace that I had wished and hoped that a team like Como qualify for the UEFA Conference League as opposed to the UEFA Champions League. Whereas the UEFA Champions League offers you more financial resources in return, the UEFA Conference League is more realistically the ideal competition that a team like Como would attempt to try and win. So, but it is what it is. You at the end of the day, you get what you deserve. The challenge, however, then becomes that how do you then compete the subsequent season, both locally and on the international scene. Now, for Crystal Palace, it's also a challenge because by the virtue of winning the UEFA Conference League, it meant that they have qualified directly for the UEFA Europa League next season. And therefore, it also means that the Premier League is going to take back 9 teams to UEFA competitions next season. 5 in the UEFA Champions League, 3 of them in the UEFA Europa League, and 1 in the UEFA Conference League. In the UEFA Conference League, it's going to be Brighton and Hove Albion, who finished 8th on the Premier League standings. Then Sunderland and FC Bournemouth are the other 2 sides in the UEFA Europa League, and now joined by Crystal Palace. Whereas in the UEFA Champions League, it's Liverpool, Aston Villa, Manchester United, Man City, and Arsenal. So last season, they also had 9 teams. You had, because Tottenham finished outside the UEFA Champions League places, but won the UEFA Europa League, so they qualified. So you had Arsenal, Man City, you had Chelsea, you had Newcastle, you had Liverpool, and then you had Tottenham Hotspur, 6 teams in the UEFA Champions League. And then in the UEFA Europa League, you had Aston Villa, you had Nottingham Forest, and then Crystal Palace in the UEFA Conference League. So that's how they tallied up to 9. Let Palace build a statute for Glasner at their premises. That would be my suggestion too. Now, the challenge, you see, success is a bit of success is like a cancer. Once you catch it, it's really, really hard to rid yourself of it, and nor should it be your mission to rid yourself of it. But the point I'm trying to drive at is that when you achieve success, it becomes more demanding to you to achieve more or to maintain the same level. When you start out working as a young man, sometimes your mission is to earn $1 million shillings a month. But once you start earning that, then you earn for 1.5, then you earn for 2, like that. That's the nature of success. The more you earn, the more you attain it, the more you want more of it. It's really, really hard to be or to feel at a point where you have ultimate satisfaction with your success. It's simply the nature of life. It may feel selfish sometimes, but that is the case of it, or that's the gist of it. So for Crystal Palace, the challenge is going to be in building a squad that is good enough to compete favorably in the Premier League to avoid a relegation while balancing their responsibilities in the UEFA Europa League. They may have successfully done so to avoid relegation despite finishing what? I think they finished, was it 15th on the Premier League log? In as far as the Premier League table is concerned, but also managed to now win the UEFA Conference League. It was challenging, but they managed to do it, even with a bit of a lean squad. But you can see that they needed some January reinforcement in that space. So in those January reinforcement, that's when we saw them sign Brennan Johnson from Tottenham Hotspurs. That's when we saw them sign Jürgen Strand Larsson from Wolverhampton Wanderers. That's when we saw them sign Ivan Guessand on loan from Aston Villa. Speaking of Ivan Guessand, yesterday he made history because he now has 2 European medals. Having played for the first part of the season as part of Aston Villa, he did qualify to win himself a medal of the UEFA Europa League because Aston Villa won that one. And now he won it. He won the UEFA Conference League with Crystal Palace for the second part of the season. So he gets 2 medals for the 2 European competitions. So quite a successful season for a guy that did not succeed in the opening 6 months following his move to Aston Villa there. So Ivan Guessand made his own, own history there yesterday. So really, you look on it and think to yourself, it's brilliant. It's really, really brilliant for him. Of course, he joined Aston Villa from Nantes. From, I think, Nantes. Yes, last summer, that's when he joined, or Nice. He was a Nice player. So he comes from Nice, but had a loan spell at Nantes. That's why sometimes I confuse the two. So anyways, so the challenge is going to be in building that squad, that can compete favorably. And I said, it's the same story for every team that qualifies for a European competition. I said the same thing about FC Bournemouth, the same thing about Brighton, the same thing about Sunderland, now Crystal Palace, because they've had a bit of a very lean squad. And they're going to need to move on some players, the likes of Nathan Elkleini, I do not think he's still capable of delivering. But also, while they build that decent squad, they must keep a hold of their brilliant players. Players like Adam Wharton are being scouted by some of the big teams. You need to keep a hold of Jeremy Pino. You need to keep a hold of Daichi Kamada in that midfield. Jefferson Nema, maybe you need to move him on and get better players. I do not know. Up front, you need to keep a hold of Gianfilippo Mateta, regardless of his desired move earlier on, like I did explain. Then Strand Larsson, Brennan Johnson, Tariq Mitchell, Daniel Munoz, Maxence Lekwa. You need to get a perfect replacement for Mark Kehi. You need both quality and depth in numbers. You need that so that you can compete favorably, because whereas they have now the experience of playing a European competition that you need to play on a Thursday and then go back to the Premier League and also compete favorably on the weekend, the level of the UEFA Europa League is a bit a notch higher in terms of the opponents that you're bound to face as compared to what you had in the Conference League. So the demands are going to be, in terms of player quality, are going to, go a step further. Unfortunately for them, Eddie Nketiah has been quite injured for quite some time. So but they will need to find solutions in there. The likes of Hugh in that midfield. So yeah, let's wait and see. Christian Richard will have to remain at the club. Dean Henderson. So you need to build on those pieces. The question is, however, who is going to be the managerial replacement for Oliver Glasner? For all intents and purposes, they're trying to be ambitious and they are pursuing the services of Andoni Iraola. However, Andoni Iraola is a bit of a hot cake because even AC Milan are interested in his services, and so do Bayer Leverkusen, who have been tracking Filipe Luis, who is going to AC Monaco. So all that is happening at the same time. Hey, Reluctant Gamer, good to have you back on the podcast. Good morning, Viola. Nice to have you back. I did miss you last night for our night broadcast. You say I'll wake up. You'll wake up at what time? Or you have finally woken up. What's your PSG prediction? If I get correct score, you'll donate £5. Wow, that's very enticing. Reluctant Gamer. Now, I've already done my preview for the Arsenal versus PSG final, and it's going to be uploaded to the channel in the aftermath of this live broadcast, because that should is not yet been edited. I had to squeeze it in this morning, but a bit of a difficult one. You know how I would love the £5. You always put me on the spot when it comes to those predictions, but instinctively, I will not change much from the 2-1 victory that I've given for Arsenal. I won't be surprised if it's 1-0 in favor of the Gunners, but I've gone 2-1 for the first prediction, for that. So you can take record of that as the prediction. I can only hope that it does come true. Anyways, so the implication of Crystal Palace winning are that they qualify for European football, but also more teams for Arsenal, yes, but also more teams from the Premier League. Now, it's really, really interesting to have 9 teams out of 20 teams in the league be playing in European competitions. By the way, a similar story would have happened to Spain, because Spain have taken 5 teams in the UEFA Champions League because Atletico de Madrid made it to the semi-finals. They've taken Barcelona, Real Madrid. They've taken Villarreal, Atletico de Madrid, and Real Betis. Then for the UEFA Europa League, I think they've taken Real Sociedad because they won the Copa del Rey. Then which other 2 teams? There are other 2 teams in there that they've taken. Is Getafe one of them? I don't remember correctly. But the team that finished 6th and 7th are also going to the UEFA. Are going to the UEFA Europa League, and then the team that finished 8th to the Conference League in the Spanish La Liga. So I forget the chronological order of the Spanish La Liga table beyond the 5th slot. If any of you have it on their fingertips, you can help me cross-check or highlight that. Okay, nice. I think 3-1 for PSG. Okay. What's your combined 11 PSG Arsenal? Again, I've given that in my video for the preview, but since you've asked, I'll go through it. Gamis says password. Are you saying something very disrespectful? I don't know what you mean by that, but combined 11 for Arsenal PSG, I would go with David Raya in goal, William Saliba and Gabriel Magalhaes ahead of Marquinhos and Willian Pacho. I'd go with Nuno Mendes at left back. At right back is where I'm a bit torn, but I would fancy Achraf Hakimi for as long as he's fully fit. Very good going forward. Defensively can be good, even though defensively, Julian Timber is a better guy. In the midfield, I'd go with Vitinha. I'd go with Declan Rice. I'd go with Martin Odegaard. Forget everything that has not gone his way this season, but I'd go with him. Then up front, I'd go with Ousmane Dembele, I'd go with Kivicha Kvaratskhelia and Bukayo Saka. That would be my combined 11 for the 2 sides. Let me know what yours would be, or where you have a disagreement, or who you'd swap out for which other player, as opposed to what my pick has been in that regard. But thank you so much, Mitchell, for that question. Okay, let's move on from Crystal Palace. As you know, we are building towards the Champions League final, and it's a conversation that we cannot run away from. It's going to come more often than not. Now, yesterday, things happen. There's a way when it comes to the transfer window. There's a way things happen really thick and fast. But first and foremost, this has come in as an exclusive from Fabrizio Romano to say that Monaco have agreed a deal to appoint Filipe Luis as their new manager, and it's a here we go. The former Flamingo manager is going to be joining, AC Monaco. Previously, he was scouted by Chelsea to potentially take over after the sacking of Enzo Maresca, before they settled down for Liam Rafinha, but still they went him as an option to replace Liam Rafinha at Strasbourg, even though they ended up going with Gary O'Neill, formerly at FC Bournemouth and Wolverhampton Wanderers. So they did that. Vela says Timber's back. Yes, yesterday he completed his first full training session with the Arsenal. So he's back in contention. I do not know whether he will be given a nod to be part of the matchday squad, but I suspect he will be. And then when it comes to starting, I do not know whether he will be started, given how long he's been out through injury, that growing issue. But I do think that Mikel Arteta could take a bet on him, at least for the opening 60 minutes, and see how it goes, unless it backfires. But he's going to be part of that squad. So then it's a bit of a surprise move for this one, because Felipe Luis has also been scouted by Bayer Leverkusen, who are set to part ways with Kasper Hillman. That conversation or talk of town has been around the block for quite some time, including initially having a preference for Fabian Hatzler at Brighton and Hove Albion. But then Fabian Hatzler extended his contract at Brighton, and therefore the focus shifted elsewhere. And Andoni Iraola has come into contention, and Felipe Luis. Now, Felipe Luis seems to be off of the table because he has an agreement in principle with AC Monaco to take on the reins over there. So it's going to be really, really an interesting space to play in. But like I said, Crystal Palace themselves are in the market searching for their next manager. And they have a huge preference for Andoni Iraola, who has bid farewell to FC Bournemouth, having achieved what is achieved with them, guiding them to their first ever European competition qualification with a sixth place finish on the Premier League table. After a period of 3 years at the club, he's done tremendously well. AC Milan sacked Maximiliano Allegri in his second stint at the club, and now they are looking for a managerial replacement, and top of their list is Andoni Iraola. So the Spanish gaffer is a bit of a hot cake. I do not think out of the other contenders, whether it's Bayer Leverkusen, who were champions in 2024 in the German Bundesliga, whether it's Crystal Palace, I do not think any of them would compare to the pedigree of AC Milan, and therefore, I do not know if it would be an easy decision for him personally, but I think it is an easy decision to pick on which one is the bigger team. To that respect, you're talking about AC Milan, who have 7 Champions League titles or European titles. They have about 19 Scudettos, so really, really a successful team. Recently, of course, their last Scudetto, I think, came in 2022 under Stefano Pioli, that team that had Olivier Giroud in there. I think Rafael Leao was there. I think Christian Pulisic had arrived. Robin Loftus-Cheek was there. Those sorts of players, Mike Maignan had just joined the club. So it was really, really good to see. Theo Hernandez, I think, was still there, etc., etc. So that's the sort of managerial space. So for Crystal Palace, it would be quite the scoop if they were to get Andoni Iraola. It would be quite the scoop. The only promise they can have for him is having better monetary terms for an offer on his table, but also I think it's a huge opportunity for him to stay in the same country, to stay in England. I did read a report that suggested that he had a preference to move to London as opposed to if he were to stay in England. And that was at a time when Chelsea was still circling around before they zeroed down to Xabi Alonso. So that is also something. Now, speaking of transfers, moving fast, Anthony Gordon. For a player who I do not rate so highly amongst the topmost left wingers present day, things have really, really happened fast. Throughout the course of the campaign, and dating far back last summer, we've been speaking about Anthony Gordon as a player that is really appreciated by Arsenal and Liverpool. Then fast forward, as we geared towards the tail end of the season, we learned that Bayern Munich were circling around and were really, really interested and were willing to make a move for the 25-year England international. Meanwhile, on the other side, PSG were also interested. We're talking about a guy that has scored 10 Champions League goals this campaign, not the best. Majority of them came against Karabakh in that playoff. Not the best of it, but it is something, really. Hello, Rio Dandy. Good to have you back. Rio Dandy, were you able to check on your super chat issue when it came to that payment? I do not know. You let me know. But anyways, so Anthony Gordon has been sort of in that space for me. I do not think he's as elite as Ekivica Kvaratskhelia. I wouldn't put him in that space. But technically, he's a good player. You ought to give that to him. This season, he's scored only 6 goals for Newcastle in the Premier League and provided 2 assists. It's in the UEFA Champions League where he's had more goals, 10 goals and 1 assist. But like I said, majority of those came against Karabakh. I think he scored, was it 4 or 5? So really, it was a bit of a big surprise when news arrived that Barcelona were moving in for Anthony Gordon. And and the reason as why it's a surprise, we've also spent the entire season having this discussion of whether Barcelona were going to keep a hold of Marcus Rashford. Remember, he's there on loan from Manchester United for a season-long loan with an option to buy for about 30 million euros. So, and whereas his campaign with Barcelona has not been as hot as he would have loved it to be, it's gone fairly well, in my humble opinion. Had a brilliant start to it and a tail end to it. In between there, he did stumble, especially at the time when they thought they could rely on him the most when Rafinha was out through injury. Sometimes he did not deliver. But it does happen to all players that you do have a slump in form during the course of the season. But I think he's done fairly well. I do not know what Barcelona have weighed here when it comes to the pros and cons, but it appears, to me, my interpretation of it, I do not see a world where Barcelona signed Anthony Gordon, 25-year-old, and then somehow managed to keep Marcus Rashford, yet both players play off of the left wing. Yes, you can use both of them centrally as a 10, as a target man, but I just do not see it. I just do not see it. And it's like I said, it's a surprise move for me. Okay, let me just read your comment. Real Dandy says, I emailed YouTube regarding my super chats. A few days ago, they said it was an internal error from my side. Okay, maybe with your bank or something. Summer Bank says, good morning, Mr. Tribe, and greetings to all viewers. Thank you for the great work, sir. Thank you so much, Summer Banks, aka Sagittarius, the Manchester United fan. I hope you're doing well this morning. It's a pleasure to have you back on the broadcast. We did miss you last night for our evening broadcast, but I've been led to believe that you are down with an illness. I do not know the specifics of that to their absolute actuality, but I perhaps will engage a little more later. So anyways, so yesterday, news breaks that Barcelona are interested in Anthony Gordon. And I'm thinking to myself, okay, this is a bit of a surprise. And how things moved really, really fast was amazing because they moved at electric speed. Before we knew it, there was an offer of 70 million euros with add-ons that take the deal beyond 80 million euros and a future sell-on clause, in terms of a percentage, of that fee. So, and then just hours later, we learned that Barcelona had reached an agreement with Newcastle for the transfer of Anthony Gordon for 80 million euros plus. I mean, of course, the guaranteed fees that are reported in there will vary depending on the source. Some would say 70 million euros is the guaranteed fees, which is approximately about 63, 64 million pounds, thereabout. Thereabouts. So, and then plus 10 million euros in expected add-ons, etc., etc. So, for Barcelona to put that financial outlay, I understand they've done all their due diligence and they know better than I do. But when it comes to eye test, I have reservations about Anthony Gordon. He's a very good finisher, can be a very good finisher. I think his best campaign in the Newcastle shirt came in the 2023-2024 campaign when he scored about 10 goals and provided 11 assists in as far as the Premier League was concerned. 11 goals and 10 assists. That was his best season in a Newcastle jersey. And then last season, it was only 6 goals and 5 assists, even though he played 34 games. But clearly, these big clubs in Bayern Munich, in Barcelona, in PSG, Arsenal inclusive, and Liverpool have seen enough in him to express their own interest at the different levels, and Barcelona are the ones that have scooped him up. The reason as to why I leave myself no reservation to think that he will not succeed at Barcelona is because I remember when Hansi Flick walks into that dugout at Barcelona 2 seasons ago or 2 years ago, Rafinha was a man on the verge of leaving the club, and present day he's a leader in that team. He's vice captain, I think, behind Ronald Araujo, and he's been quite sensational or remarkable, to say the least, under Hansi Flick. So who knows if Hansi Flick can polish up this guy. Remember, Hansi Flick has also recently renewed his contract with Barcelona until June 2028 with an option to extend it for further year, which could take it to June 2029. So it's really, really tremendous. And Barcelona are trying to build a squad that can win them the UEFA Champions League because they've not won it since 2015. So all that is happening. So, but I do not know. I think it's the kind of move that is going to split a bit of opinions within the respective fan bases or football enthusiasts. Mitchell Wainscott says, can't sign Gordon for 70 million and leave out Rashi at 30 million. I mean, the difference in quality is not, I just do not see it. Yesterday, I was having a discussion with the United Road at 10, and he was saying he wouldn't wish for Marcus Rashford to return to Manchester United. And I was telling him, Marcus Rashford has had his best days in the Manchester United jersey. Yes, he may have had his stumbles for the 2023-2024 season and subsequently 2024-2025 for the first part of this campaign, which he spent at Man United before going on loan to Aston Villa. He remains as one of Manchester United's most recent academy talents. So I don't know whether it has to do with wages. I do not think it has everything to do with wages. I just do not know. But I mean, when you look at the age profile, Marcus Rashford is only what? About 2 years older than Anthony Gordon. So it just, something has happened. Barcelona have possibly done their due diligence or their homework and have assessed Marcus Rashford, what he's offered them, and said, we are better off with the other candidate. I do not know if it all will work out, but the player is expected to land in Spain, in Barcelona, anytime soon to complete his medicals and be announced as a Barcelona player before the World Cup. Mitchell says, is Barcelona signing its style of players in good cause? We have seen Rashi struggling on the bench, the ones he found there. Exactly. He does not come off as a Barcelona type of player. But the one thing I've come to appreciate in football recently is that clubs have signed players that profile-wise appear to be out of tradition. In Barcelona signing Robert Lewandowski, he was out of tradition because I do not remember the last time Barcelona had played with that typical center forward, with that typical traditional number 9. And yet they signed him in 2022 and it worked out perfectly well. When you go back to Pep Guardiola at Manchester City and you look at some of his recent signings in Antoine Semenyo, in Jeremy Doku, they did not sort of appear to be befitting of the typical Pep Guardiola kind of player. But maybe they've also discovered something else. Maybe their understanding is that the game is maybe taking a different direction, but sometimes you need that a bit of a more direct player that you would get in Anthony Gordon. So anyways, he'll be competing for that role, and I suspect Barcelona could move on somebody. But the signature of Anthony Gordon to Barcelona means that chances are high that Marcus Rashford returns to Manchester United. Initially, I thought his chances of returning to Man United were anywhere between 10 to 15%. They just went up by 50%. In addition to the 10-15%. So he's now at 60-65% chances of returning to Man United, even 70%. I'll put it that high. At Manchester United, I do not know what Michael Carrick's sentiments would be around Marcus Rashford, but I think he could use a player like him. First of all, I do not think Michael Carrick as an individual has any bone to pick with Marcus Rashford, nor does Rashford have a bone to pick with Michael Carrick. So there could be a good relationship in between the two. It would have been Rashford's preference to stay in Spain with Barcelona, but if they don't want you, if they're not willing to put the money on the table, then you're better off walking away. I mean, it almost feels like the writing is on the wall for Marcus Rashford that, yeah, Barcelona have dragged their feet on paying 30 million euros for you and have told the world of how they want to renegotiate with Manchester United for your permanent signature, and yet quickly they are making a financial outlay to the tune of 70 million euros to sign Anthony Gordon, with whom you play in the same role. So that should communicate something to you, you know. Whereas his shirt number 10 at Manchester United has already been dished out to Matthias Cunha, yeah, he will need to look for a new number. United Road 10 yesterday was telling me that if it does return, him and Andre Onana, they need to train away from the rest of the squad and be training with the reserves. And I said, I do not think any of them has done something that horrible at the club to deserve that level of treatment, the way we saw Raheem Sterling be treated by Enzo Maresca at Chelsea, that he sent him out to train with the reserves. I don't think he's done anything to deserve or warranty that sort of treatment. So for Marcus Rashford, a return to Manchester United would be less ideal for him, but I think he can find his foot again under Michael Carrick at Manchester United. And bearing in mind that they're going to be playing in the UEFA Champions League, they're going to need all the squad depth. And Marcus Rashford is the guy that promises you goals. He's very direct. Dead ball situations, he can chip in with a couple of free kicks here and there. So he's still as athletic as you'd have him. So maybe Steve Holland, Michael Carrick, and all his other assistants coach him to be back to the Marcus Rashford that we saw scoring 17 goals and providing 5 assists, I think, in the 2022-2023 Premier League season. That calendar year, across all competitions, he scored about 30 goals for Manchester United. So clearly, the talent is in there, you know. The talent is in there. He is capable of delivering. Although a good number of Manchester United fans will be better off not having him back. Why? Because previously he's been reported about as a bit of a divisive figure when it comes to the dressing room. I do not know that to be the actual case with absolute certainty, but oftentimes, like the old English adage goes, there's no smoke without fire. So, Summer Banks, you're a Manchester United fan. You're a Manchester United fan. What are your sentiments about the possibility of Marcus Rashford returning to Old Trafford? What's your view? You know, would you welcome him back? Okay. Mitchell says those loan players are parasites. If Carrick wants to see his failure at him, let him bring him back. Okay, I mean, for Andre Onana, it had nothing to do with what his dressing room behavior was or reported to be. It was everything to do with what he was delivering on the pitch. They felt he had failed to deliver on the pitch, and that's why they decided to move him on to Trabzonspor on loan. Okay, then Raymond Kangumba says, hi, the Newcastle owner should stick around with Ed Howe. No Newcastle United owners should stick with him. Okay, I mean, until there's a change of guard in ownership from PIF, that's the private investment fund of the Saudis, to maybe your preferred choice of Amanda Stevali and and her husband, Mohammad Guedoshi. We'll only have to wait and see what direction the Magpies will take from here and then henceforth. But for now, he's there to stay. Hi, Becky. Becky, Namulindwa is asking Wanondiwa, where am I at? Welcome to the Football Tribe UG channel. I hope you're doing well, Becky. Good morning. I didn't see you last evening, but I hope you're doing okay. I hope you're doing okay, Becky, wherever it is that you are at. Anyways, so that is what is regarding with Barcelona and their move for Anthony Gordon. The expectation is that he will undergo his medical and join Barcelona. So that is in the work lines. Then quickly, Tottenham Hotspurs also did reach a verbal agreement with Andy Robertson to sign him as a free agent from Liverpool, having bid farewell to Anfield. So Andy Robertson is bound for a move to Tottenham Hotspurs. He's a player that they scouted. They wanted to sign him in January, but Liverpool were reluctant to sanction a move because they were afraid they could not find a quick replacement during the January transfer window. So they decided to stick with him. Now, you'd have thought that the incoming of Roberto Di Zerbi would have changed something in terms of priorities when it comes to signing a player like Andy Robertson, but it seems that even Roberto Di Zerbi does appreciate him enough. First of all, he's a very good guy. Defensively, at that left-back position, he does promise you that very long pass. for a manager the caliber of Roberto Di Zerbi and his profile, who likes to play possession-based football, he could use the player, the quality of the qualities of Andy Robertson. So being a squad player in there, of course, they're not going to have European football. They'll compete domestically. They could use his services as opposed to constantly having to live with a makeshift desert space at left back there. Anyways, Danny says, "What's up, champ?" Danny to me is also known as Peter Parker. So it's a pleasure to have you back on here. Okay, let me read. I think there's another comment. This is coming from Raymond Kangumba. Says, "Hi, Mason Greenwood and Marcus Rashford and Jonathan David should sign for Newcastle." I mean, if Newcastle were to get Mason Greenwood and Marcus Rashford, as well as Jonathan David, I wouldn't recommend Jonathan David, especially at the time when you still have Yohan Wissa and Nick Waltmert, as well as Willian Osula, given that he's had a failed debut campaign with Juventus. That's for Jonathan David. Those two in Mason Greenwood and Marcus Rashford will be quite a scoop for the Magpies. So good take there, Raymond Kangumba. Summerbank says, "Nah, no return for Rashi. I feel we are far better without him, though all replacements aren't that better than him as of now." Okay, that's a good take. I think if United Rotten were here, he would disagree. Yesterday, he made an odd suggestion of his view of who the best left winger there is in the Premier League, and he said it's Matas Cunha. And I told him I disagreed. Yes, I appreciate the fact that there is not many brilliant wingers in the Premier League, but I said when you look at Aston Villa with the way they deploy with the double 10 of Emi Buendia and Morgan Rogers with John McGinn in there, I'd rather go for Morgan Rogers for me. Yes, he's not very good on eye test, but he's a guy that gets you the numbers. So he's a bit more effective in my opinion. Okay. Summerbanks to Becky says, Ozungachi Obuza. Okay, I'll leave that to you guys. Danny says, which 5 players you think are gonna be the highest goal scorers in the FIFA World Cup? 5 players that will score the most goals. Kylian Mbappe could score many goals. Harry Kane with the England national team could score many goals. You know the thing about those competitions is that a player, let's say Kylian Mbappe, he would come, let's say, and score maybe 4 goals against an underdog, and then before you know it, he's running it away with it. Let me see. Julian Alvarez, maybe, with Argentina, could score many goals. I'm trying to think. Portugal, somebody. I don't think Cristiano will score very many goals, by the way, unless a good number of them is penalties. I'd rather bet Bruno scores more World Cup goals than Cristiano Ronaldo. So I've said Kylian Mbappe, I've said Harry Kane. I'm still looking around. Surprising, Spain have a habit of spreading their goals around, so I don't see somebody standing out there. Let me see. I'm really trying to think on here. Maybe Victor Gyökeres with Sweden. He could score a good number of goals. He may not be top scorer, depending on how far in the competition they go. But I do fancy Victor Gyökeres could score many goals. He's one of those. Who else? USA, Frank Balogun? No, I don't think so. When you go to Turkey, where you have Kenan Yildiz and the other Gulas of this world, Brahim Diaz with Morocco, maybe he does score a couple, and the other would have to be a surprise package. Maybe with France, either Dembele or Michael Olise, one of the two could score a couple of more goals. That would be my thinking on that one. So Players at Newcastle are good, but the coach seems to have run out of ideas. Now, interestingly, somebody during the course of this season, I think, was it either with the Daily Mail or Daily Mirror, somebody in the English media wrote that Eddie Howe had outgrown the Newcastle project. And there I was thinking to myself, isn't it vice versa that the project has outgrown him? You know? So anyway, whereas it's a difference of opinion, I kind of agree. I think in an ideal world, Newcastle would be better off moving on to a bit of a next level manager, somebody that is a bit more pragmatic, and maybe Xavier Hernandez. Antonio Conte, I love him as a manager, but he's a bit chaotic. There's a way he will give you one good season, then the second season will not be as good, and before you know it, you're having, wrangles within the dressing room and he's leaving the club. He's the kind of guy that doesn't sit in one place for long. Other than being at Juventus for what? Was it 4 or 5 years? I do not remember him being at the club for more than 2 years, but nonetheless, maybe if they were not sticking with Ed Howe, they could make a move for Andoni Iraola, but for now they're sticking with Ed Howe. Okay, Rio Dandy says, do you now think that Nico Williams not joining Barcelona was a success? I think he will sit back somewhere in a reclining chair with a cold cup of coffee, staring at his table, to stare at his table, and think to himself that he made the wrong decision in signing a 10-year deal, even though it came with improved pay that has a release clause in the excess of 100 million euros. Yep, that's what I think. You see, it's the story of earning. Would you rather be given £1 million today or be given 5,000 shillings every day for the rest of your life? I'll take the 5,000 shillings every day for the rest of my life as opposed to £1 million today. So for Nico Williams, he appears to have gone for £1 million today. And now he has to live for the rest of his days with that decision. Maybe the deal may have not happened in the summer. He was still under a good contract. He could have waited it out for an extra year. He's not had a brilliant season, by the way, this season. Of course, a lot can change in the next 1 or 2 years. He does rediscover his form and maybe big clubs come calling. But given that he's such under a very lengthy contract, he must be thinking about it with his brother, Inaki Williams, and saying, mate, yeah, I think I was misguided here with my agent. Okay. Bruno will make more assists than scoring. That's from Summer Banks. Speaking of Bruno Fernandes, he's come under a lot of criticism from former Manchester United captain Roy Keane. And he said he's seen a player who is tried to, as much as he can, to make it about himself simply because he wanted the assist record. Instead of going on to score, you're trying to pass the ball to get that assist. And he did cite that moment when Manchester United were playing against Nottingham Forest, when he makes the fine pass to Brian Mbeumo and he misses his chance, and as a captain, he goes to the floor, banging his arms on the floor in disappointment that he had missed that opportunity. And to be honest, sometimes I feel Roy Keane is overly critical of Manchester United players, but he was right. He was right about Bruno Fernandes. I mean, and who better to say these things than Roy Keane? Of course, the two players are playing in different eras, and I saw a clip of Bruno Fernandes speaking on the podcast of Diary of a CEO, and he was saying that he had reached out to somebody to try and get Roy Keane his contact because he wanted to reach out to him privately and set the record straight on some of the misquotations he had heard of him and things like that. But yeah, Bruno, I mean, he will strike the ball. But this idea of being obsessed with assists, yeah, he needs to rid himself of that. But he wanted to break the record. He broke it, and the rest is history. Okay. Rio, I responded to Rio Dandy's comment there. What's your prediction for PSG versus Arsenal? I went for Arsenal 2-1 to win. That's my prediction. But like I said, guys, the full preview for PSG versus Arsenal final is going to come up on the channel in the aftermath of this live stream. So in about an hour after the live stream, it should be going up. Ceteris paribus, provided all factors are kept constant. I can see it is threatening rain, and every time it does threaten rain, it also threatens for the power to go off. So maybe something changes, but it will come out today eventually. Okay, Anthony Gordon is coming to Barcelona. That's true. Okay, Glasner is good for the Magpies. Good for the Magpies. Yeah, I think it will be good for them. Although there's a school of thought that he's better in cup competition than he is in the league. Although I want to think that given a better set of players, he'll do much better than he has done in the Premier League. Because last season I think they finished 12th in the Premier League, and this season they finished 15th. So Summerbank says Hakimi and Dembele, are they fit for Saturday's game? Hakimi is still a bit of a doubt for the Saturday game, but Ousmane Dembele is available. Lashgush says Arsenal eat PSG alive. We can only hope and wait to see if that will be the manifestation. Okay, Danny says, bro, I know you're a Manchester United fan and you still support Arsenal in the final. Am I right? No, the reverse is true of being an Arsenal fan, but I'm not a Manchester United fan. I just do not have many bonds to pick with these teams when it comes to rivalries and stuff like that. We may have our swipes at them once in a while, but nothing personal there. So I'll be rooting for Arsenal to win there, but I'm not a Manchester United fan, Danny. Amicho says, if Ken was in Africa at this point, we would see him visiting Mama Fina ahead of the World Cup. Funny enough. Anyways, it is what it is. Whatever it takes. Maybe the ends justifies the means. Would be the analogy for it all. So, do you guys think that Roy Keane is well-meaning and intended, and is well right within his being overly critical of Bruno Fernandes? Because he says Man United are about winning trophies. It's not about your individual, brilliance, in terms of, earning that record, assists and whatnot, Anyway, remember that Man United side was about the grind and the grit of it. So they may not dwell so much on that. It reminds me of the conversation we were having last night on Kabia's forum about Cristiano Ronaldo, and was making references or inferences on when he had just arrived at Manchester United and how senior players went to Sir Alex Ferguson to complain that this young lad that you just bought for us is good, but he's taking too long with the ball. He's too much about his personal entertainment, that he is about the business end of things, because they were accustomed to a Ryan Giggs and a David Beckham, who once, as soon as they got to the byline, they would float in the ball for a Dwight York for a Ruud van Nistelrooy to, tap the ball into the back of the net. So you had that sort of a feel within the realms of things. Anyways, quickly, yesterday, the Dutch did put out their team or squad for the World Cup. Danny says, bro, did you watch the match? Inter Miami versus Philadelphia 5-4 match was insane. No, unfortunately, I was not able to watch that one. I did watch the Crystal Palace game, which I could only catch the second half of because I had a digital marketing lecture to give between 9:30 and close on to 11. Then went straight to the Crystal Palace game, and then after that continued the live broadcast. So apologies. I think we lost sound there. Morning Scouts. Apologies on the sound there. We had lost it. My microphone ran out of battery, so I've had to make a switch of microphones. So, but it's good to have you back, Scouts. Sound is off. Is it back on now? Bro, your mic disconnects for seconds. It's now fine. Okay. Yeah. It went out of battery. My microphone went out of battery, but we are back on. Okay. Good to know. Good to know. So, like I said, the Dutch did summon their team. They have Mark Vlekken, he left Brentford for Bayer Leverkusen last summer. They have Robin Roffies from Sunderland. They have Bart Verbruggen from Brighton and Hove Albion. Can you please read my previous chat, sir? It's a bit long. Oh, Rio Dandy. Which chat? I didn't notice that I'd missed a chat. Because your last chat that I have was about Nico Williams, and I do not have any other. Rio Dandy, indulge me with the same comment in case you still have it on your fingertips. But maybe I'm having a lapse in my feed. Okay. Maybe I'm having a lapse in my feed, but Rio Dandy, I can't seem to find your comment that you had missed, that I had missed. Kindly paste it in the comment section, then I'll get to it. Okay. What else does Ken want? What else does Ken want Bruno to do regards to his position involved with the team? No. Well, Ken's comment is that let's be honest. To be fair with Roy Keane, it was clear at the tail end of the season that Bruno Fernandes had this obsession with providing those assists to break the assist record than he was opposed to scoring. Even in moments where you thought, yeah, it's Bruno Fernandes, he's going to have a crack at this one. He would try to play that through ball. So that's what he was speaking to. And that display of disappointment when Brian Mbeumo misses the opportunity, to him, as the former Man United captain is saying, walk over to your teammate and say, look, you missed that chance, but don't worry, you're going to score on the next one. Sort of give him the encouragement, because we know that Brian Mbeumo's form has been in a bit of a dip when it came to scoring the goals. That's what he's demanding of him, Okay. Mitchell was saying mic is off. I think it's back on now. Okay. Who will win the final on Saturday? That is from Scoutmate. I think Arsenal will win. It will be hard. It will be very grinding, but I think Arsenal will win. I just don't know. By the way, in the history of the competition, in as far as the UEFA Champions League is concerned, forget the European Cup, we've not had a first-time winner defend that accolade. There's also that bit of element to it. It's not a given. It's simply something, you could qualify it for a coincidence or something that just has not happened. And there's always room for the first time for something to happen. Ever since it became the UEFA Champions League, only one team has won it back to back, and that's Real Madrid. Real Madrid in 2016, 17, and 18, they won it 3 consecutive times. But winning it back to back has been really, really difficult. Remember, Bayern Munich tried. 2010 final, lost out. They came back 2012, lost to Chelsea, and then won it in 2013. So there's always that struggle. So you also have to bear that in mind. It may be difficult, but I have a feeling that somehow, somewhere, Arsenal could grind it out. But anything can happen. PSG could make it look easy and they win it. It wouldn't be a huge surprise if PSG go on to win it, Okay. Danny says, bro, you have to come live in the PSG versus Arsenal match. It will be fun watching the match together. It would have been, but the game kicks off at 7 p.m. East African time. My objective is to watch the game away from this space. I would have loved to do the watch alone. Trust me. But I cannot guarantee on it. at the moment. Okay. Scout says 19th of June is when the new fixture will be out for the Premier League. Okay, just a second. When the fixture will be out for the 2026-2027 season, we'll be looking forward to that one. Summer Banks thinks PSG is going to win. They're going to thump Arsenal by 3-1. Okay, that's our prediction. We'll wait and see whether that will be the case in that regard. Okay, quickly, back to the Dutch national team squad that was released. For the defenders, they have Nathan Aki from Manchester City, of course, Virgil van Dijk, they have Denzel Dumfries, they have Jarell Hato, John Paul van Hecke from Brighton, Mickey van Ven from Tottenham Hotspur, and Julian Timber from Arsenal. Then for midfielders, they have Frankie de Jong, they have Ryan Gravenberch, they have Cop Miners, Tijan Reinders, Martin de Roon, Gustil, they have Quinten Timber at Marseille, Mats Wafer, and then for the attackers, they have Sunderland's Brian Brobby, they have Memphis Depay, they have Cody Gakpo, they have Justin Kluivert, who has not had a good season with FC Bournemouth. They have Noah Lang from Galatasaray. For those of you that remember him doing his exploits in the UEFA Champions League, he did score, was it against Juventus at the playoffs of the Champions League. They have Daniel Malen, who spent the second part of the season on loan at AC Roma, and AC Roma looking to make that move permanent by paying 25 million euros to Aston Villa. Then they have Crescencio Somerville from West Ham, as well as Wout Weghorst. So you remember, for Manchester United fans, you remember Weghorst under the tenure of Erik ten Hag in his debut campaign. So that's the Dutch national team in as far as how they look to set up for the for the World Cup. Then Anderson has agreed personal terms with Manchester United and paused all talks with other clubs. Manchester United are having negotiations with Atalanta over what is believed to be a 45 million euro package for the Brazilian central midfielder there, about 27 years of age, Anderson. He's one of those players that has been constantly scouted or talked about by big teams across Europe, but they've never brought themselves to signing him out of Atlanta. Maybe this summer is when it does get to happen, and Manchester United are in pole position to sign him. He's a good player, but I think he would benefit Manchester United a bit more as a squad player than he would be a direct replacement for Casemiro. I think for that position, they need to go out and be a bit more adventurous when it comes to filling that void. See you soon, mate. Going for a few beers. Take care. That is Scouse. See you too, Scouse. Anyways, guys, it's almost 11:30. Allow me call it a morning. Yes, we were late because of I had to work trans nights, thinking that power is going to be off this morning, and therefore I wouldn't be in position to do this morning broadcast. But as God would have it for you, we've managed to do it. Amicho says, what special attribute does Weghorst portray? Because I see him as a player doesn't even deserve to play professional football. That's too harsh. That's too harsh a review. But I understand where you're coming from. Well, he's very good in the air, very towering, very good physically, and he will score you a goal. You never know he gets to score you the deciding goal. Sometimes this, when it comes to cup tournaments and competitions, he could be the guy that steals the moment. He could be the guy that steals the show in one game that takes you from maybe the round of 16 to the quarterfinals or otherwise. So that sort of feeling. So, and there's a reason as why maybe Ronald Koeman continues to trust him and to summon him to his squad. But it is what it is. Anyways, guys, allow me wrap it up here because I have to upload that video that I've just promised you guys, and then prepare for all other engagements for the course of the day, and also get to some bit of other work on a personal basis. So thank you so much, Micho Wine Coats. Thank you so much, Scouse, Summer Banks. Danny, thank you so much. Rio Dandy, I did not get the comment that you said that I'd missed. I don't know if it got retracted either by you or by the platform. I do not know, but you did not resend it back. Okay. Thank you so much, Viola. Thank you so much, Becky. Thank you so much, Kami. Reluctant Gamer, always a pleasure. Raymond Kangumba, thank you so much. Dark Psyche Official, thank you so much. Doom, it was a pleasure to have you, and every single one of you that has been part of this wonderful morning broadcast. We'll look to obviously continue the conversation at 11 p.m. Tonight for our usual night conversation for the live, and also for some of you with whom we share the space in different forums. I'll be looking forward to catching up it with you on that side of the aisle as well. Otherwise, stay blessed and have a wonderful rest of the day. May God bless you in your respective endeavors, and may the hard work of your faithful hands bear the desired fruits. Bye-bye for now. See you again.